Fix that by trying to build a wall, or you can fix that by trying to document people.
For now, I'm going to try to get through this.
If you're looking for a diverse CPR training mannequin, my personal favorite is CPR Taylor.
Welcome back, and live from the dingy bunker. My name is Jobob. Thanks so much for tuning in. We got a lot to get to. AOC says she can fix the immigration crisis. Diversity CPR crying during the January 6th recap. And where the hell is Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin? What is going on there? Hey, welcome back in. I know we've taken a little bit of a break here, but excited to be back. Geez, this is the first time we've been live in almost a month. Extended Christmas break and also kind of revamping what we're doing here. So appreciate you sticking around and tuning in. Gotta get to this first because this is so interesting to me that I don't even know where to start with this. Are you caught up on this story? If you don't know this story already, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin went missing. And I mean that literally. If you're the Defense Secretary of the United States, especially in a time of being on the brink of war, you would think that you'd be kind of at the beck and call of your boss, who is the President of the United States of America. That would just make sense to me. But that wasn't the case when Lloyd Austin decided to get elective surgery on something that we don't even know anything about yet. So there's several components to this. First of which is he just kind of did it. Didn't tell anybody, including, well, we'll go through the list of people of the order of prominence, I guess. He didn't tell the President of the United States. Joe Biden did not know that Lloyd Austin would be incapacitated in the hospital for several days. Again, during a time where the American people are on several different war footings in several different places. Now, I understand the argument that someone might make of, well, you know, the Secretary of Defense and the President don't necessarily need to talk to every day. I would have assumed that that's how that works, but again, I guess I don't know the internal workings of the White House, but I don't know. I assume that the President would probably call the SecDef maybe every other day. In a time like now where you've got multiple wars going on all the time, yeah, I would imagine that the President would be talking to the SecDef all the time. But let's just say that they're kind of their intermediaries are the ones that talk. Okay, well the National Defense, not, what is it? What is his, oh, Jake Sullivan. Why, I'm blanking on his title. The National Defense Advisor, National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, also didn't know that Lloyd Austin would be incapacitated and in the hospital. But it doesn't stop there, because if the Secretary of Defense is incapacitated somewhere in some way, shape, or form, somebody has to fill his or her duties. And that person would be the Deputy Secretary of Defense, and she didn't know either. The Deputy Secretary of Defense was on vacation in an inner tube in the ocean when she found out that you are the Secretary of Defense. And what does that mean? What does that entail? Well, if Iran had gotten lucky and actually hit a U.S. base or ship or military installation, she would be the person making that call. And did she know that she would be making that call? No. There was a guy in the Washington Post, I forget his name, but he worked in the Defense Department under Rumsfeld, and said the Secretary of Defense and the Deputy Secretary of Defense didn't even ever fly together, knowing that if something happened to one of them, the other would be in charge. Or if something happened to the Secretary of Defense, the Deputy Secretary of Defense would be in charge and therefore have to make the big decisions. So Lloyd Austin, SecDef, goes into this, we now know, elective surgery, doesn't tell the President, doesn't tell the President's office, doesn't even tell his own Deputy Secretary, and just kind of comes back to work. The Defense Department released a statement yesterday saying that Lloyd Austin is not resigning and the president has no interest in firing him. Now, who knows if that's true? The Defense Department can put out whatever they want, and Lloyd Austin can say in a press release whatever he wants. If I did something insane and my boss was furious with me, as Politico is reporting that Joe Biden was, I too would also probably put out a press release saying my boss has no interest in firing me at this moment, and I will not resign. Like, yeah, that doesn't mean anything to me. But back to the point. Joe Biden also reportedly, according to Politico, was furious about the fact that he didn't know that the defense secretary was undergoing a surgery. Now, I guess the more humoristic side of this is that we don't know what the defense secretary was going in for. They say it was an elective surgery, and so what was he electing to do? Should we even be saying he now? Is Lloyd Austin now Loretta Austin? Who knows? We have no idea. Has he decided to transition? Has they decided to transition? We don't know. Now, in his defense, elective surgery is, well, it can mean a vanity project, as a lot of people, I think, take it as, but it also can mean a surgery that you do need that doesn't need to be, or that can be scheduled. So an elective surgery can be anything that is scheduled. So if you have like a heart problem, but you're not going to die tomorrow, you can schedule it for 2 weeks out. Technically, that would quantify as an elective surgery. But the weird thing is that the Defense Department isn't saying what it was, and they haven't said what it was. Now, an elective knee surgery or a hip replacement, a guy's served in the military his entire career, that's totally defensible. No pun intended. That you can say, yeah, I needed some work done on my knee and took it out. Now, why you wouldn't tell anybody, I don't understand. But why they're still not telling anybody what he did now is weird and should be weird to pretty much everyone. Let's see. People in the comment section, hilarious. Steve says he already had no balls, probably just finishing the job. That's funny. Steve probably remarking on the fact that the Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, not super, what's the best word for this? Ballsy. Ballsy is the correct term, probably, with attacks from Iran and our deterrence methods. Probably a lot of people thinking, yeah, not the best moves from our defense secretary. But whatever this ends up shaking out to be, we will have it, I don't know, in the next couple days. But yeah, what happened to the SecDef? Nobody seems to know at this point. But I want to move on to this because I think this is interesting. This is AOC. She is definitely smart and qualified, as you can tell clearly by this photo and chyron. AOC, definitely smart, definitely qualified, went on The Daily Show the other day to talk about how she or the American people can solve the immigration crisis. Now, okay, here's the thing. Do you want to solve the immigration crisis? Well, look no further than New York Congresswoman AOC, who has just a brilliant idea on The Daily Show. Watch this and we will discuss.
From all parts of the political spectrum, one of the biggest issues that we have when it comes to immigration is the fact that we have an undocumented population. Now, you can fix that by trying to build a wall, or you can fix that by trying to document people and create a path to citizenship. We'll have folks that might say, look at these systems, that our shelter system has weight and things like that. But one of the reasons that our public systems experience weight is because people don't have a documented and reliable path to work and sustain themselves, just like all of our ancestors did and our grandparents and great-grandparents.
Okay, so very smart, very qualified congresswoman from New York City says, well, the best way is just give them all citizenship. Okay? The Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Defense, or what is he? I can't. All of the secretaries of so many different things. Homeland Security. Secretary of Defense? No. The Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, pulled a number out of his butt and said, 2 million people have come into the country that we don't even know about. That is not including all of the people that have declared asylum and are waiting for their court dates that are in 4 or 5 years, by which they will surely have children and then be here forever. So the problem at the border is not that, oh, you should just give everybody citizenship, as AOC is suggesting. She says a pathway to citizenship, so I'll be fair in that, but she said, well, just let them just come in and stay here. Oh, okay. Is that the standard by which you can tell people to leave or let them stay? If I walk in to a large house that I can't afford, but a place that I really want to live, do I get to say, well, it's rude and probably racist to kick me out of this dwelling? I will now get to stay here. Will AOC come to my defense and say, no, they get to stay? Because she doesn't assume my gender. She calls me a they. They get to stay here. No, probably not. Now, there is a component of this where I might agree with AOC. I think the process by which that we're doing this whole asylum thing is insane. Now, obviously, we would disagree on what asylum is, but the fact that you come into the country, you claim asylum, then you get shipped off to somewhere, probably New York City, where Eric Adams is complaining a lot about it, and Brandon Johnson in Chicago is complaining about it, and all of the sanctuary cities around the country are complaining about it. But regardless, you come into the country, you quote-unquote claim asylum. The process should be, and I think AOC would even agree with me here, the process should be, all right, very quickly we decide if your asylum claim is legit or no, you have to leave. That should be the process. I would say, again, I would look at those I would probably take a couple weeks to a month to figure out, and by me I mean like if I were to set up the system, you would hire as many people as necessary to take a look at these particular asylum claims and decide yes or no. Because that's really all that this is. It seems like a pretty fixable problem, and yet for some reason, nobody wants to fix it. If you just said, hey, we're going to decide quickly whether you can stay here or you cannot, then you get to decide whether they stay here or not. And if they stay here, fine. Again, we would probably disagree on how many people we let stay, but if you say, hey, no, you got to leave, you do it expeditiously, which is fair to not only the American people, but to the people who are coming in to the country, so much as I want to be fair to people illegally crossing into the country. Because what's happening now is you get sent to all of these cities, and then 3 or 4 years later, you have a hearing to decide whether or not you get to say, well, what happens in those 3 to 4 years? They probably got jobs, cash under the table without E-Verify. They may have had kids, which now anchors them in this country because they are now parents to American citizens. It is a problem for everybody. And it's going to be a massive problem in 2027, 2028, when all of this comes to a reckoning, and you either have judges that are going to say, nope, can't stay, and are shipping a ton of people back to the countries that they came from because the asylum claim wasn't legit, or you're going to have all of these people go, well, what are you going to do? Just let them stay, and you entirely change the demographic of the country overnight, and illegally, by the way. So it is a huge problem, and while I can agree with AOC that the system probably needs to be revamped and fixed, preferably by a business person who has done this sort of thing before. No hints there. The whole idea of well, just document them then. Just give them give them everything they want and need. How about no? That's not going to work for me, dog. But that's that. I want to move on to this, because I think This is in that same realm. We won't spend a ton of time on this, but I do want to play you the video. Tears for Democracy. An MSNBC, MSNBC. It's cold out here. Maybe it's my lips are a little bit numb. But Tears for Democracy. An MSNBC host cried on air when recounting the terrible day at January 6th on the anniversary over the weekend. I want you to watch this clip and we will discuss the tears shed for the American democracy. Where is it? Here we go.
For known, I'm going to try to get through this.
Okay.
Thank you.
You too.
For what you did 3 years ago today. Please tell me your thoughts on this third anniversary.
We are still in the midst of the same fight that began on January 6th, 2021.
All right, we don't need to watch that whole thing because what that guy said is not as funny as the dude crying. But I think that's Jonathan Capehart on MSNBC literally getting out a tissue and crying into the tissue because of just the horrific events. Now, I don't think January 6th was a good thing. Maybe some of you do. I don't. I think there is a lot of nuance to what happened on that day, as we're finding, as more and more footage apparently still is coming out 3 years later, which is insane. But the people that were bashing in windows with rocks and beating cops with flagpoles, nobody thinks that that is a good thing at all. And also, there were people that were being ushered in and around the Capitol by police officers and Capitol staff and just got to go wherever they wanted to go. So what the heck is going on there? The bottom line, though, is the emotional component that exists in so much of lefty politics. Now, I don't know if this is legit and he's actually crying and those are real tears, or if he's putting on an act, both of which are a problem. Either he actually feels this strongly about something, but apparently didn't when a bunch of blue cities were on fire during the BLM riots, and apparently didn't during all of the tyrannical control that the government sucked up during COVID, after COVID, and up until this point. But this particular instance is jerking tears. Or it's not legit and it's an act, which is also a problem because that would mean the host and probably the producers assume that the viewers feel so strongly that they're caught up and they want to be empathetic, so they're getting their host to choke up in tears. The problem is, when you have this much emotion invested in politics, bad things happen. There was a podcast that I was listening to that talked about what would happen if the two sides, the left and the right, went to a civil war is a tough term because there really can't, just considering the geography of where, quote unquote, the left and the right are, which is intermixed across the entire country, the idea of a second civil war it's a weird, it would be difficult to pull off just from a geographical standpoint. But in terms of the sides fighting each other, you have to ask yourself, who would be the first to violence? Well, probably the more emotional people. Isn't that usually how it works? Generally, when somebody's fighting or a couple is fighting or friends are fighting, the more emotional person is the first one to blows, God forbid it comes to that. But the idea that a left versus right is to claim, as I have, and I still am not entirely sure that I think this entirely, but to claim, well, we have all the guns and we have all the tough men and the weaponry and all of the things, has to come under the assumption that we would do something with that if physical violence, which I don't want to happen, were to ever break out. The other side of that, though, is, well, the people that are so emotional about their political causes generally speaking, are the ones to act first, which worries me. Again, this is not a call. I do not want anyone to be violent anywhere around this country because of their political ideas. But if it does happen, it's usually the people that are exerting as much emotion as seen here on MSNBC just can't come to terms with the just horribleness of January 6th. Again, this is not saying January 6th was a good thing, but did it bring me to tears? No. I want to move on to this because I think this is interesting. The UN is stupid, and when people say defund the UN, here's why. The UN in 2023 just instituted their new Human Rights Council. Now, in the past, there were several countries on the Human Rights Council that had no business being on the Human Rights Council, including Russia, who was only kicked off a year after they invaded Ukraine. I believe North Korea at one point was on the Human Rights Council. China has been on the Human Rights Council. And last year, Last year, Iran was appointed to a leadership role within the UN Human Rights Council. Yes, Iran. Talking about the Social Forum. Just for the record, Iran also last year, very close to the time where they were appointed to this prestigious part in the UN Human Rights Council, hung 2 women for criticizing the religion on social media. So there's that. So a new crop of countries has popped up and has become on the UN's Human Rights Council. Some of those countries include Namibia and Rwanda, which we don't need to go into the history there, but on the Human Rights Council. Also, pause. The fact that it is like this rotating thing that just, well, everybody can participate is why the freaking UN is such a stinking joke. The fact that we all pretend, all of the countries, that every country that is involved in the UN is the same as us. They have the same exact say, and they should have the same exact say, is hilarious on so many different fronts. Whereas the United States can produce the most, and any country in the world have the highest GDP, and also, I don't know, Zimbabwe, which, no offense to Zimbabwe, you're not the United States or anything close to it. But we have to pretend, well, no. The say of all of the various countries, regardless of whether or not they are evil countries or they produce nothing and contribute nothing, everyone is the same and everyone should have the same say. That's one of the reasons why the UN should be defunded. But to continue on to this, some of the countries that are included on the new Human Rights Council at the UN is Sudan, which the U.S. government says significant human rights issues include credible reports of unlawful and arbitrary killings, cruel, inhumane, and denigrating treatment or punishment by the government, harsh and life-threatening prison conditions, arbitrary arrests or detentions of political prisoners or detainees. That is what the U.S. government says about Sudan, yet they're on the Human Rights Council. Saudi Arabia is on the Human Rights Council, where women weren't allowed to drive until 2018. Great. Also, everybody remembers the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi in the Saudi consulate in Turkey. They are also on the Human Rights Council. Pakistan, which recently displaced 1 million Afghan refugees in a region that is kind of controlled by Pakistan, and just said, kick them out, get them out of here. And that happened like last month, displacing again 1 million people in their own country. They are on the Human Rights Council. And Eritrea, where compulsory, decades-long military service is required of all of its citizens, they are on the UN Human Rights Council. People don't know much about Eritrea, but you should know about Eritrea. If there is a big war that breaks out on the African continent, it's going to be between Ethiopia and Eritrea. Eritrea is Africa's North Korea. It's ruled by one dude who has absolute total control. You have to serve in the military. Basically until you're dismissed, but the military also runs the entire economy. So basically you serve in the military but are forced to be a farmer for 40 years. It is a crazy country that you should look into. They are also going to go to war with Ethiopia because Ethiopia is the biggest, most populated, landlocked entirely country in the world. And in order to maintain trade and economic growth, they need a port. Eritrea is in the way from Ethiopia to that port. I won't get into the whole specifics of it, but it's going to be a big issue at some point. All of that is to say is that Eritrea, with their incredible amount of human rights abuses, is also on the Human Rights Council in 2024. And so when people say the UN is a joke and we should pull out of the UN and we should stop funding it, the reason why is because stuff like this. It is a joke. The people that are involved are a joke. And nobody freaking pulls any of their own weight and we pay for it all. So how about we don't, or we revamp it and say, okay, we are going to hold all of you countries accountable and not pretend that we all have the same say. Lastly, I want to get to this because I think this is, I think this is funny. Hold on to your hats, folks. If you're practicing CPR, you need to make sure that you're practicing CPR on a diverse mannequin in case you possibly come across somebody who isn't the same as you and you need to be able to practice CPR on them. Because, of course, CPR isn't a thing that exists across every human body, regardless of their race, ethnicity, religion. No. You need to practice on all of the different CPR dummies. Watch this and try not to roll your eyes too far back in your head.
Hey, welcome to Training Tip Tuesday. Today's training tip is going to be incorporate diversity into your CPR training. Diversity in bystander training is crucial to ensure all members of your community receive proper care and the attention that they need in an emergency. By including diverse perspectives, we can better address the needs of different populations. If you're looking for a diverse CPR training mannequin, my personal favorite is CPR Taylor. CPR Taylor comes with male and female chest skins. They come in 2 different skin tones, light skin and dark skin. This one is the dark skin.
What does this person think happens when somebody is in need of CPR? Oh my gosh, is anybody a doctor? Who here's the doctor? I'm a doctor. Doctor runs up, or at least I'm CPR certified. CPR certified person runs up and goes, oh no! This person is brown, and I've never practiced CPR on a brown dummy. However, will I save this person's life? Do I pump to the same music? Ha, 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 staying alive? Or is that just white people? What if it's an Asian person? I've never practiced CPR on an Asian-looking dummy. Do I sing a different song? What's 120 beats a minute? Maybe we should all be grateful that we have built and live in a society in which you have the privilege of caring about this. Maybe that should be the takeaway, that we are so privileged in the society that we live in that there is time and mental ability to care about the color of the stupid CPR dummy. I don't care if it's blue. Teach me how to do CPR on a person. If I'm ever in the situation where I have to save somebody using CPR, I'm not going to be, I'm so thankful that we spent 30 minutes in this class covering how to make sure your CPR dummy is diversified. What? I don't know. And to further the point, if this lady who has to be CPR certified and also teaching other people how to do CPR, even though it's on TikTok and anybody can do that on TikTok, I have no idea of this lady's credentials or qualifications. But how does she do things? If somebody is choking, does she have to know much about them? Not choking. If somebody is in need of CPR, does she have to know about their heritage and past and their racial inequities or how they view the world before starting to practice CPR? I would say, I'm not even going to put words. I would say probably not. Even the lady who's saying you need to diversify your CPR robots and dummies, probably wouldn't even care there. So if she wouldn't care in a real life situation in which you have to perform CPR, why then would anybody care? I don't know what's next. What other immutable characteristic can we start, not seriously, but humorously start, not even making fun of, but pointing out and giving credence to or priority to? I don't know. Innies and outies, maybe. Maybe that'll be the next thing. Innie belly buttons and outie belly buttons. You need to decide, you need to make sure that your CPR dummy has both an innie belly button and an outie belly button. Because apparently, things that you can't control matter in these days, in today's day and age. I don't know. Holy cow. All right, hey, that'll do it for us today. I appreciate y'all sticking around and tuning in.
Now you can fix that by trying to build a
what
wall.
What is happening here? Hold on. Let me make sure we're obviously, if you're, there we go. If you're new to the show, we are in kind of a new, different setup, kind of just new branding and stuff. Kind of unsure of how this is going to end up working, what time we're going to do it at. We're shooting for around this time every day, but we'll get on a solidified time schedule sooner than later, I think. Yeah, I appreciate you sticking around. I know we're kind of revamping and retooling, because everybody in the industry is kind of doing that. Like and by industry I mean the talking head space, the political commentary space. Everybody's kind of just doing this weird shift and trying to figure out how we collectively fit together in that. But appreciate you sticking around, tuning in. If you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media accounts. Wow, that just kind of happened naturally, as that's what I've said for how many years now? If you I don't know, give me a follow on any of your social media accounts. And so yeah, we should be back tomorrow and doing the same old. And yeah, we will see you then. God bless America.
Now you can fix that by trying to build a